Hello, everyone. My name is Luke Holden. Welcome back to episode 8 of the No Holden Back podcast. Currently sitting here with my dad, Ben Holden. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Luke. And we're moving along, and had Jay Feely on earlier this week, Dave Starman on earlier this week. Thanks to everybody that's been listening on the podcast. And we're looking to just keep adding guests. And we got another good one coming your way here in this installment of No Holden Back in episode 8. We'll get to that before we touch on a couple of the hot headlines that my son wants to talk about.
Yeah, so pro motocross in the U.S. being pushed back again. Looks like June 15th is now the new starting date, and they're going to go no later than September 12th. So if obviously the pandemic continues to go into June, which it hopefully doesn't, but it might.
Yeah.
If it continues to go into June, then September 12th, they would just have to keep cutting rounds down the more this goes. So we could end up seeing possibly a 3-round series depending on what happens, which obviously is no real good way to, settle a championship fight.
Jesus Christ. Fucking juicy.
Yeah.
He's probably calling me with Chase Pearson. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luke Holden. Welcome back to episode 8 of the No Holden Back podcast. Currently sitting here with my dad, Ben Holden. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Luke. Good to see you. And, man, we're getting up there. We got this is episode 8. Thanks to everybody that's been listening on the podcast, and whether it's Facebook, Twitter, my son's Instagram, his Snapchat. We really appreciate everyone's taking in the podcast. And this week so far, Jay Feely, we've had Jay on.
Yep.
CBS Sports NFL analyst, was my partner in college football for 4 years.
Yep.
Kicked in the NFL for 14 years. Talked a lot with him. Dave Starman, who I've worked with for 10 years doing college hockey. And our guest today in episode 8, I've known this guy a long time, and we're going to get to that in a moment. He works in the Detroit news media. Great guy, very entertaining. That's what I'm going to tell you right now. We'll get into it after my son hits on some of his hot headline topics he wants to get into.
Yeah, so pro motocross has just recently announced yesterday, actually, that they're pushing back again now to June 15th is planning on being the start date. It's only an 11-round series instead of 12 like it normally would be. Their specific end date right now, September 12th. They will go no further than that, as Monster Energy Cup will be starting, and the Motocross of Nations would be coming up very shortly after that, since that's also been postponed and pushed back. So basically, if the pandemic continues into June, they will just continue to keep cutting rounds off. So we could end up seeing a 2 or 3 round series, which, anyone that watches racing or anyone really that knows anything about sports, having a 2-3 race series isn't really a good way to settle a championship fight.
Yeah.
But it'll be pretty interesting to see how that goes. It's good that they're kind of, settling on some dates now and trying to get things worked out. May have fans there, may not have fans. It's a little bit easier to do social distancing at a motocross track compared to Supercross, but We'll see how that goes.
What else you got?
Yeah, so Jason Tatum the other day was on ESPN The Jump.
NBA guy.
Yes, plays for the Boston Celtics. Yeah. He said he doesn't own a basketball.
What?
Which for an NBA player seems like a pretty odd thing. So it sounds like, he said he hasn't touched a basketball since they basically had shut the league down for the time being, which to me, I don't really believe that. But that's just my opinion. I mean, when you're an NBA player, I would at least think you would have a basketball somewhere.
One would think, yeah.
You don't have to have a full court in your house or a half court or anything like that, or even a hoop. As long as you have a ball to practice with, I feel like that's substance enough.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty interesting to see that the other day. Him talking about not having a basketball and not touching one in about a month. So.
All right. Well, I got one to add. My love for golf, and wish I could play, but we can't right now here in the great state of Michigan.
Yep.
We're banned from doing that for now, but it's gonna pass eventually. Of course, I would want to play right now. I mean, it snowed yesterday, and chance of snow later today as well. But the PGA Tour, they may be the first professional sports league or group, however you want to call it, that comes back. A story came out late last night saying that the Colonial down in Dallas, that may be the very first PGA event back sometime in, I believe it was in mid-June they're talking about.
Okay.
Not a done deal. But I think in golf, you could get out and you could play tournaments. I don't think you can't do it with fans, obviously, right now. But certainly with golf, I think you could do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll see what happens. But
Definitely.
otherwise, for me, not a whole lot going on sports-wise. Although I will tell you that coming up in one of our next couple of episodes here, No Holding Back, we are going to be joined by the head coach of the Denver Pioneers, Bill Tierney, who's won more national championships in the great sport of college lacrosse than anyone. We're also going to talk with Jade Miller, played for Minnesota Duluth. He's a senior.
Yes.
One of those players, like so many in so many sports, Luke, that had their seasons and not in just their seasons, but their college careers ended because of what happened with the coronavirus.
Yep.
Jade's a great, hardworking player, a great young man from Minto, North Dakota.
Okay.
Talk with him. Next week, looking ahead, Trevor Baptiste is going to join us, more lacrosse.
Yep.
He's going to handle that one all the way through.
That'll be a great one.
Yeah, and Trevor started his own podcast. So we got a lot of great guests lined up and a lot of bigger things even yet in the works. So what do you say we get to our next guest here on No Holding Back?
Yeah, so for our super guest hour today, we're going to be talking to
Super Guest Hour, and it's brought to you by Tim Hortons.
Hopefully soon, yes. But today we'll be talking to Channel 4 WDIV news reporter Jason Colthorp.
Yeah.
I know you two have known each other for a very long time. I'm pretty excited to talk with him, to talk a little bit about what he's been doing.
Yes.
He's been on the front lines reporting everything that's been going on with the pandemic. I think he has some pretty good impressions too from what he told me.
Get ready to laugh.
Yeah.
We're going to talk certainly, about the things he's been doing and his take on what's going on in the world, and specifically right here around Michigan. I think he was at one of the press conferences that Governor Gretchen Whitmer had. He was one of the pool reporters. He anchors, although right now he's just reporting. He told me that they're trying to keep it so they're trying to limit the amount of people that are in the building, in the studio, which is very smart.
Right.
And Jason and I met, I want to say 98, I think we met when I first started in Lansing. He was working at the at Lugnuts Stadium as the MC for the Class A Lansing Lugnuts, doing Harry Carey impressions.
Oh, wow.
And he has a laundry list of people that he can impersonate, and we're going to get to that momentarily as we get into the interview here on the podcast, No Holding Back with Jason Colthorp, and let's get him in.
Yeah, sounds good. The super guest hour is next. Stay tuned.
Happy to be joined now by Jason Colthorp of WDIV Local 4, reporter, anchor, comedian. He does it all, man. How are you, bud? Good to see you.
What is going on?
Well, I mean, under normal circumstances, we could probably do this if I zip lined over to your house, right? I didn't know you lived so close to me.
I just said that to my wife. I go, I'm doing a quick podcast with Ben and his son Luke, and I said, by the way, he lives 5 minutes away. We'll have him over for 8 feet drinks. Don't get too close, but here, have a soda there, fella.
We'll have a putting contest in the driveway.
Now we can do that. Hit him right back to me,
man.
Yeah, we're right down the street.
We are. That's good. Well, we'll get together when things get back to normal, whenever the hell that is. But you've been covering all coronavirus stuff. But I want to go back to you and your beautiful bride Ida. Congratulations on your marriage in early January.
Thank you.
On your honeymoon to Hawaii. Take us through that. What was that process like of getting there, and more importantly, getting back?
So you want me to tell you what happened on my honeymoon?
Well, the travel part.
I'm kidding.
I know you are.
Look at this guy. I didn't realize we were going blue so soon, Ben. Okay. We were scheduled to go March 9th, and then early on, I had to kind of tiptoe around my boss to get her approval, because we had booked this thing way in advance and then found out later that the primary was March 10th. And so I thought that would be the big hurdle for both of us, being in the news business. Are we going to get this off? She was like, yeah, you've got it booked. My boss was great. Let me go. And then we get out there, and everything was fine early on. We were on Oahu for a few days. Coronavirus was ramping up on the mainland pretty good. But in Hawaii, they were talking about it, but they had just declared a state of emergency. There were no cases at that moment. And I kept saying, I go, if we could get out here and just enjoy this trip and get out of here before the coronavirus gets out here, because they might put a travel ban in place.
Yeah.
So as we're going through, we were still on Oahu. I think it was our last night in Oahu. We were waiting in line at this awesome restaurant we've been trying to get to, and there's no reservation. So you're standing out there, and we're first one's in line, and we're just kind of glancing at our phones. And I said, "Oh my God, Tom Hanks has coronavirus. Did you see this?" And she's like, "Wow." And so she's reading up on that. And then all of a sudden the NBA cancels the season. And this is like in a span of 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh boy, this is, and then that night, Hawaii got its first 2 cases, and it started ramping up. So it was hard to relax, really, because all day you're paying attention to what's going on. You're 6 hours behind the news. So we were focused on that. And then we were able to, we actually cut it short one day, because I have a friend who's a pilot, and he said, I asked him, I said, "What are you hearing? You hearing anything about a travel ban?" And he thought there could be one. There was a good chance. So we got out of there a day early, got back home.
So did you and Ida have to quarantine? Were you self-quarantine? Were you made to quarantine when you got back?
Well, we're quarantined away from our families for sure. My job, I talked with my boss, and we said, instead of going back into the studio to anchor at 5:30 and report, because I do both every day.
Right.
I said, because I had offered, I said, I think at least for the first 2 weeks, why don't I just report, so I'm not, because I've got to wait and see if I picked up anything up in Hawaii or traveling, and then we'll see how it all plays out. And so they agreed, and just until this is all over, we decided the safest thing to do is just let me report, which I do remotely. Don't even go into the station, just meet a photographer, and we don't even ride together. Ida, I'm actually sitting in her set.
I see that.
She's the morning anchor. Like, she's got her whole setup like in front of me here. And every morning she does the news from our basement. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And how different has it been just reporting? And, obviously I think you guys are taking some different precautions in the studio to keep less people in there too.
It's funny you ask, because last night we did this. The short answer is, it's like learning how to report again. It's like learning how to get interviews. How do I shoot them? How do we package them and put them together and make them interesting? So last night was a virtual school board meeting I covered. And we thought it was Zoom, but it's a webinar. So we couldn't record it that way. We had to record it the old fashioned way, with the camera shooting the screen. We're trying to get good audio. So we plug it in to get the headphone audio. Well, we didn't realize till hours later when we're editing that it was way overmodulated. It was going into the camera, the levels were good, but then the sound was way out of whack. And by then we had to bite the bullet and just use what we had. But to be honest, it's an uneasy feeling. And one day I almost had like a meltdown, because I just felt helpless. And it's funny, Ben, it was like the early days at Channel 10 working for you, where I just was so frustrated, thinking, this is different than what I know. I'm learning on the fly. I can't get this. Am I going to make this? Am I going to be able to figure out how to do this? Right. And so it's just, as you learn it step by step, just on how to report this way without actually talking to people. And some days, one day I was just frustrated, and I broke down. I said, look, we're going to come meet you. We'll set up a microphone. We'll stand 10 feet away, and we'll do it that way. And we did. So it's tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been near, or I know you haven't been in any of the hospitals, I wouldn't think, but what's that part of covering it? And if you talk to people that have recovered, what can you share with us along those lines from people that you may have been involved with from that standpoint?
I've done a couple of virtual tours with doctors who have walked us through their facilities and how they changed it into a coronavirus unit. I've heard some updated things lately that we haven't reported yet that I think are pretty important. While we get all the numbers out, and I think the trends are all going in the right direction. They say you need to look at, when you look at all the data, to look at how many people are still being admitted to the hospitals. And right now, at least from Beaumont's standpoint, the coronavirus units are still not that populated. There are not that many patients in there. The Wayne emergency unit turned its whole emergency center into a COVID unit for all of its hospitals, and it's nowhere near capacity. So they're seeing that as a very good trend, that these aren't filling up, and they converted the TCF center, and there's only a couple dozen people there. It can hold up to 1,000. So I think Michigan and the Great Lakes area has done a really good job of social distancing, not traveling. And I think that curve's going to flatten it. I think this is why you're seeing a lot of people in Lansing today, because they think the data is already going that way, and they are frustrated, and they want to make sure that this doesn't get extended again. And of course, that all depends on the data, but it's one of those things where at least the doctors I've talked to, I think they think things are going the right way.
Good.
Yeah, definitely. And, obviously we have the protest, Operation Gridlock, I believe they're calling it, up in Lansing today. And kind of talking about those numbers. I believe China's going through a second wave now because they had opened their country back up too soon. What are your thoughts on that? And, do you think the protest going on in Lansing is the right move at this point?
South Korea also, I think, had the same thing. They spiked and came right back down, and they tried to get back to normal. And they were actually going to start playing baseball again, and they went, maybe not yet. Yeah. So I think with the people, it was funny. I had a quick exchange with someone on Twitter today just about the protest, and some people see it as, because it originated as a Facebook group, and within the group there were a lot of people putting Hitler mustaches on the governor, so it was dismissed as, people, a hate group almost. And there's, the governor at least has said that the DeVos family is behind this, so it's clearly a political thing. But I've talked to people who are going to this, and they're not all crazies. It's not like a bunch of nut jobs who make it all political. Some people are going up there because their businesses are in trouble, and they think they're going to fail, and they're not just going for their own, but they're going for their neighbors. And one person I talked to said, so-and-so's flower shop, they think they're going to go bankrupt if this doesn't get loosened. And those people, I don't think, are all open everything back up, go back to normal. I think they're trying to get the governor to listen to things like, can we loosen some businesses open up while we're still keeping some precautions in place? And I think they want to have that conversation. So I understand the protest, and that's just part of the American way in the political process. But I think, like, some of the developments we've heard, like I think you brought up to me, that now some people don't care what happens up there, and now it sounds like there's some things happening near the hospital where they're blocking entrances. We don't know what's happening, so hopefully it stays peaceful.
Yeah, no question. No, I saw one of the press conferences. I saw you were one of 3 pool reporters to go up and interview the governor. How do you feel outside looking in? How do you feel things have been handled?
It's, I guess we don't know yet. I think it's one of those things where when we get on the other side of it, and you look at how we definitely had one of the hot spots in the country with Detroit. So Michigan had to be aggressive. We know that. You could almost, I think you can make a case. I mean, we have that protest going on right now, but a lot of people were making the case wasn't aggressive enough early enough, and should have been more aggressive. And now you have this protest. So it's kind of like, well, what are people criticizing? Should she loosen things up, or should she have been more aggressive? Or I think it's easy. 2020, hindsight's 2020, whether it's the governor or the president or other governors. But I think it's no one's ever dealt with anything like this. So I always try and stay clear from judging what should have been done. But when it's all over, if things go well and we can flatten this curve pretty quickly in less than a month, personally, the one opinion I do have is I think April 30th is going to be a good date. I think that's the day where things are going to loosen up significantly. Whether people go back to restaurants or movie theaters, that's a different thing. But right. I think restrictions are probably going to loosen up.
Yeah, and then you got to look at the world of sports. I mean, here I am sitting in my living room with a studio now, and I'm fine. I'm not complaining. I'm grateful. I got, I'm all good, but I can't even fathom, Jay. I don't even know when it's going to be. None of us do. I can't fathom, think of the stadium that's, 15 minutes south of us, the one that we both despise. I'm kidding, of course, Michigan Stadium.
I'm not.
Because we're both Spartans. But I can't, I can't imagine, all kidding aside, 110,000 people in there anytime soon. I don't know what to think, what to do. Hey, so I'm just kind of living a day at a time, man.
I think, and I was saying this to my brother a minute ago. It's funny, we were talking. I said, I think it's going to be easy for people to go back into these venues because this thing has scared us to the point where people who have symptoms, or I think you can sit next to someone who has the flu and not get the flu. And now that we've gone through this,
Yeah.
I think anyone who's got a sneeze or a cough are going to be very proactive in how they handle that, whether they don't go to the game or maybe they cover up, maybe they still wear some sort of mask.
Yeah.
But I think people are going to do this and they're just going to be way more cautious. And I think the days of probably shaking hands are over. I know I'm probably going to avoid that, at least fist bump somebody or anything else other than shake hands. So I think you're going to see a lot of trends that go the other way. And, you might have a job, but maybe fans won't be there to see it. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm fine with that personally. I mean, I'm totally fine with that. I think, curious to get your take on this too. Is an unprecedented of a time this is. I can still find positives in this. I mean, I'm sitting here next to my son. We're doing podcasts and doing things like that. And, I found myself being even more grateful and thankful and appreciative of all the people, the healthcare workers, number one, the first responders. I mean, you're out there. I mean, the news media is out there around this stuff too. You guys got to be careful too. And I found more of a sense of gratitude towards all of you guys in that group as well, Jay.
It's funny. Like just last night, I was out on that story just to try and go find a bathroom before my live shot at 11 o'clock. I had 2 hours. I'm like, I got to find somewhere. I had to go 20 minutes away just to find a grocery store that was open because no gas station was going to let me use the bathroom, and they're all closed and everybody. And then at that point, you're like, how many doors do I want to put my hand on before I find this here? And it's that anxiety that builds up. And I have talked to at least one person in person, 10 feet away, who had coronavirus, who had recovered. And while we're standing there, she's coughing, and she didn't sneeze, but she coughed a couple times. And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? And I'm like, is this story really that important? And so I just kept backing up, and I thought, so it's what we do. It's what we chose. So
yeah. And what are some of the things that, you yourself and your family have kind of been doing to self-quarantine, if you will, and keep yourself safe when you're out there reporting and just going to get groceries and things like that?
Well, in my house, I do all the grocery shopping, so we try and limit that. So even though it drives my wife crazy, she's like dying to get out of the house. She goes for a walk, and on Sunday, I think some of the things that we've tried to do, we've tried to think a little bit out of the box and what can we do? So Sunday on Easter, we drove to see her grandma and her mom and dad and her brother and sister, and we did it all from the car and talked while they were on the porch kind of thing. So we were able to get out of the house that way. But my kids are doing what you guys are doing, just hold up, trying to get outside and walk and exercise whenever they can. My oldest, who's at Michigan, she's still taking classes online. Well, they're both taking classes now because high school's back, at least online. But she's taking classes. She's staying in her apartment in Ann Arbor right now because she was going back home and back and forth. And I said, you better just pick a place and stay, at least for the next 2 weeks. Yeah. And so she did that. She's staying there, and she's just trying to grind through this thing too. But, college kids, Luke, it's not hard to get through something like this. Yeah. Can we drink? Can we party? What's going on? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Right over there.
Yeah.
Instead, I put him to work.
Smart.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely attest to that. I mean, the first I was at Western during my spring break, and they were still in school at the time, and the first announcement of coronavirus, kind of hitting Michigan and things like that. Me personally, I didn't do this, but a lot of students at Western Michigan, and I know, at a lot of other schools that were still in session, they were going out and partying and drinking and saying, oh yeah, school's over, and I think me personally, I don't think that was the best idea.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely will say it has been a little bit easier to be at home and not have to worry as much about classes and things like that. So,
Michigan, I mean, the students at Michigan State there, I mean, they didn't do anybody any favors by everybody was trying to stay home, and they're lined up at the Riv trying to get in. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. Same in Florida, spring break. Oh, we don't care if we get it, which some of them did. And, I think we've done such a great job. If one more week of this, maybe 2 weeks, or even 3 all the way to the 30th, I think is really going to smash this out of here.
Yeah, I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right. Do you miss sports?
You know, I don't miss basketball. Well, obviously I missed the tournament and the Masters. Those are the two. NCAA tournament and the Masters. That was kind of tough.
Yeah.
When somebody goes, by the way, today would have been the opening day first round of the Masters. And I was like, oh, man, it is. Oh, we could have had the Masters. So other than that, though, because the Pistons and the Wings are so bad, I really don't miss hockey or basketball. But I do love, I'll tell you what, I love all of the classic games they're playing and watching. I was just watching the first World Series I remember was 82 Brewers Cardinals, and they're showing game 2 or something. And I thought, oh, yes, I remember this as a kid. And some of the classic games they showed last game at Tiger Stadium.
They showed the Jordan shot in the national championship in '82.
Yep.
Oh, I saw. Yeah, I didn't watch that, but I saw that one. The '79 game they replayed.
Yeah.
It was like one after another. Almost every time I zip through the channel lineup, there's a classic game on, and I'm like, oh yes. I made Ida watch the '88 Game 1 World Series where Gibby hits the home run. I said, oh my God, she hates sports, and I just go, oh, you got to watch this. This is super dramatic. I go, that's Steve Garagio's dad. That's Steve Garagio's dad got on the call right there. Yes. Here we go.
Funny you mentioned Steve, because I was in, I want to say 4th grade at Wilcox Elementary in Holt, and our librarian was Mrs. Myers, and she brought Steve into our class.
Great librarian.
He was working at the same place you and I both worked at, where we met at Channel 10. I mean, you know, he's a legend, man.
He does right now. He's got a nice area or I should say, not a beat so much. They've got him doing some great things right now. He's doing some podcasting, some in-depth reporting. Right during coronavirus, he's doing all these acts of kindness, which have been really cool stories. But Steve tells a story like no one else. And when I got here, it reminded me a little bit of how you would have some fun with stories, or people that could take a subject and just go have a blast. And next thing you know, like he did when I first got there, Harbaugh had just gotten hired, and he went up to Ann Arbor, showing the picture around, going, anybody see this guy? Anybody see this guy? And he's just walking into places. And great storyteller, Steve.
He really is. He really is. Do you miss being in the sports side of news?
A little bit, only when a game is, you always when the game is over. I miss it because I'm like, boy, I'd like to be in this post game so I can ask this guy this. Yeah. But then I don't like it because then I can just lean back, kick my feet up, and go, I don't have to work.
Right.
That's when the game got over. That's when we had to go to work.
Right. Exactly. We had a lot of fun up there, man. And what are some of your best memories working with the dean up there, Tim Stout, with the 3 of us, man?
Well, you know them all. We've talked about it a million times. A couple that Luke's never heard.
That's what I was kind of going for.
Yeah. So Tim was always the classic, quality, not quantity, or quantity, not quality. Just go out and find anything. Whatever you could find, just anything. We're desperate, man. Be a hero. I'm like, what does that mean? I came back with a guy who was practicing at a field once because he was trying to make the Western baseball team. I said, is this any, absolutely package it up. It's good. So your dad was the king of, like, if he was anchoring, and we'd always did a story. Here's my story about 115. Can't you cut that down to 110? You're killing me. You're killing me. Act like I got all the time in the world. All right, let me see if I can cut it down. And that back then we're tape to tape. So that you basically had to re-edit your entire package.
Yep.
So anytime you had to get extra time, Ben would, get a little annoyed. So, and he'd go, it's got to be 110. Deal with it. I'm sure you've been told deal with it by your dad a million times. So this one time, I'm anchoring. It's a Sunday. I'm anchoring, and it's sometimes I would anchor when Ben would want to go cover something he wanted to cover. Well, Indy's at Brooklyn, so he wants to go cover the Indy race. Comes back, he's in the edit bay, editing all night. I'm getting my show ready. He walks in, takes the tape, puts it on the desk. I look at the tape. It says 232, and he goes, 232, deal with it. And I just go,
Oh,
okay, all right.
This is
Then there's
dead.
another.
This is dead. That's dead.
Yes, that's dead. Well, there's my whole first block. Okay, good stuff. Thanks, man. So this other time he comes in and he just tells me, he goes, by the way, next Thursday, it's May 4th. It's my son's birthday. I'm taking it off. Deal with it. And he turns around and leaves. I go, it's also my birthday, but okay, enjoy. We share the same birthday. I was thought, and then finally a couple years later, he didn't know it though. He didn't know that was my birthday, and I was too afraid to tell him that. Like 2 years later, I go, you know, Luke and I have the same birthday. You do? What? I'm like, yeah. I was too afraid to tell him.
We had a lot of fun, man. And, you know, people ask me, and I want to get your take on this. You know, people ask me all the time, you know, what was it like working for Tim and, you know, all that. I spent 6 years there in sports. How many years were you at the station total?
15.
15. But you were with us, what, 2 years, then news the rest, right?
Yep.
And my response has always been this, Jay. All he ever said to me was, smile. You're good at what you do. You're going to go a long way. And my point is, he just gave me freedom. He gave me freedom. All kidding aside, you know, like you were telling, you found the kid in the, you know, the story about the kid in the field practicing. It didn't matter what it was. He always gave me freedom to be myself, and I always appreciated that. What are some of the biggest things you got from Tim?
And the guidance was loose, but every now and then he'd hit you with some fatherly advice that you're like, wow, that I still listen to. And I remember when I said, hey, when I led to the news thing, actually, coincidentally, I said, they want me to anchor the weekend morning news just to fill in. What do you think? He goes, you know, the more versatile you can be, the more valuable you are. And I said, oh, he goes, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. Ended up leading to the news, but I always remembered that. And I tell my kids that now. I'm like, you know, the more you can do, the more versatile you are, the more valuable you are going to be to a boss or a company or something like that. They're going to think, wow, you can do 10 things. So I bet a guy over here who can do 2. Let's take her. So those things. And like you said, like if whatever your personality was, he'd always point me to the kids' day at Lugnuts. You know, you're good with those kids. Just go have some fun. See what happens. You know, just find a good human interest story if you can. You got it, Tim. Problem.
Sorry there. I thought one of the funniest things you and I ever did, I forget what year it was. It was at the Christmas party at the golf course there in Williamston. Remember we went in and we did the Stout Ackerley face-off? You remember that?
Yeah.
And that was the first time that Tim had ever heard me impersonate him. And I think I'd worked there 3 years. And I was always like, I don't want him to hear me do it. You remember that?
Yes. I forgot that I actually did an Ackerley impression. I can't even remember what it sounded like.
Kathy, his wife, came up and she said, you sound better than him.
I tell you, it's always fun. A lot of people have really good impressions, and
they do.
They're great. I love them.
Speaking of which, that is something that you have a gift of doing. So we're going to turn you loose here.
You got a gift, my friend. You got a gift. Yes, you do. This is my De Niro.
We're going to turn you loose here for a little bit, man, as we keep it going here. And I know you got to get to work soon, but give us a little Donald Trump.
So the other day I took my coronavirus test and they said it came back negative. Not just negative, but very negative. Maybe the best negative score they've ever seen. But that's the doctor saying it. They've called it the greatest. I didn't say that, but very, very low when it comes to if there was a perfect negative number, this was a perfect negative. But that's just what they've told me. I'm not quite sure about how that works, but absolutely we're going to get through this. People don't worry. We're going to actually, that's kind of bordering on the Alec Baldwin. So it used to be much better, but I just stuck to huge. We were robbed. We should have gotten it. We should have done it. Believe me, we'll have you down to Mar-a-Lago very soon. Believe me. Go ahead. Fake news. Fake news. You're fake news. Nobody cares.
Everybody's fake news now, it seems like, according to him. But anyway, for the lack of getting any more political than that statement, who are some of your other favorites, some of your new ones you've been working on?
I like, this is a tough one. because the first one I ever did was Harry Carey. And over time, you know, Harry Carey did, "Here comes Pedro Barbald to the mound. Barbald spelled backwards is Dabra. Okay, here comes the pitch. Hey, swings and misses. Check out the guy on the third base side, by the way, Steve. He's wearing a sombrero. I tell you, we can make a heck of a nacho plate out of that." And then, of course, you have the Will Ferrell Harry Carey, which is, "Hey, babe, if the moon is made of spare ribs, would you eat it? I know I would. It's a simple question, man. Would you eat it? I know it's so good, tasty. I'd wash it down with an ice cold Budweiser. Hey." So over time, I'll pick up some other ones and I'll try and do it. And people will go, "Oh, that kind of blends into your Harry Carey." I'm like, "Oh, that's not good." So as I tried to figure out Izzo, my Tom Izzo started as just screaming, "Hey, you better check somebody or you'll be right back on the bench." Then I listened closer to the interviews and I'd hear him post game. "You know, looking at the stat sheet there, we did a lot of good stuff, and but there we had some weird lineups in there for about 4 minutes, and we kind of let things go. And you know, some of these freshmen just got to do a better job." And then you've got the courtside interview. "Well, we got to check somebody. You know, we got guys out there that haven't played all year, but they got to do a better job. And I don't want to name anybody, but Shannon Brown's got to step it up." And then as I got to Detroit, I'm hearing Mayor Duggan, and I'm like, I think I could do that. "You know, Detroit is really coming back. We've got a great thing going, and now we're getting into the neighborhoods. We've got so many people ramped up. They're all helping out. It's going great. We just need your help, and we need you to help us out and get involved." And then people will say, "It kind of sounds like Izzo," but I'm like, is it Izzo or is it Mayor Duggan? Because if they were the same thing, it would be. Yeah. It'd be, "Hey, I want to introduce Tom Izzo, Spartan head coach. He's a huge Detroit fan. Well, Mayor, I love the city, and we got the same voice almost, so I'm on your side. Let's bring it back. And yet, I think we're doing good. Okay."
You're the man.
And team.
Remember, I sound like Chris Farley here. Hey, remember that time when you called in when I was doing radio at WTKA? And the lady, there were a couple ladies that thought you were really Joe Paterno when you did your Paterno. I'm not kidding you.
The Paterno was totally based on, remember Tim would always ask us to cut a Paterno by, you know, Paterno's on the feed. If you could just grab 15 seconds about the game coming up, that'd be great. Yep, and it was always based on him just sitting there, and he'd always say the same thing on those things. He'd go, "Well, you know, it's a good rivalry. You know, it's a good football team. They're a lot of good, tough players and well coached, but you know, it's a good rivalry. Good rivalry, yeah." Didn't I do Bobby Bowden too for you?
You did, yeah, because you did. It was after it was an Orange Bowl. I want to say around, I don't know, it was 05, 06, whenever they played Florida State. You did the Bowden Paterno face-off.
Oh, how was Bowden? Well, that's a great, he had the draw. Great football team, right on down the line. Yeah, see, they got a lot of good football players, and you look at that, you look at them from start to right on down the line. They got a great player at every position. It's going to be a wing ding of a ball game, I can tell you. Yeah, that was about it.
About your Lloyd was always good too. You know, I love Lloyd personally, but your Lloyd Carr was always terrific.
I loved Lloyd. The one time I interviewed him, he's like, "You know, I think John Navarro's a great football player. He's a good leader, and I think people are going to be surprised at what he can do this year. He's good. He's going to be very good." And then you had
there's the classic from you. We were both at this game. You were in the end zone with TJ Duckett, caught the pass from Smoker. I was in the other end, and then the press conference ensued with Lloyd.
If you got any questions, shoot them, because I'm not going to be here long.
You feel cheated, Coach?
They deserve better. That's it. That was a good one. And then we, of course, we gave away he got the coach fired for Michigan State, Bobby, the next year by putting a beating on him. And then we got, we got to catch a damn football. We're out there running around, their heads cut off, and the coach is sent it in. Shouldn't have sent him in. That was a dang coaching mistake. Players are playing their hearts out, and the coaches are screwing it up.
that was. So Luke doesn't know that was John L. Smith. That was John L. Smith. They were playing in Columbus, and State was beating them, right, in that game.
Oh yeah, and
I don't think they won.
No, right? They didn't. But they gave up a blocked field goal for a touchdown to end the half.
Yes.
And it was like that was just mass hysteria because he's going, and they sent the field goal team out. And they were supposed to spike it first, and they didn't have the right guys out there. It was crazy.
What else you got? Can you do a Saban?
No, I've tried Saban. He just isn't very animated.
No, he wasn't even a week ago.
What did I do here? I had a list. You should know this one. Well, I'll tell you right now, that guy is a great quarterback. You watch Matt Stafford. He's going to watch his receiver. This is XY Spider Banana. He's going to break right. That ball's already in his hands, man. That's a throw. That's an NFL quarterback right there. Men, are you with me? Knock wood if you're with me. All right, let's go. That's my Gruden. And then I have one of your favorite announcers.
One of my favorite, or just in general?
One of everybody's favorite announcer. Well,
right.
Some. See if Luke knows this one.
All right.
Well, they're going to have to do a better job in the second half because they're just not running the football as well as they have. You can pass the ball all day, but if you can't run it, when I was head coach of the Jets, Jets, we had a nice mix of running and passing. And right now, Michigan's just not passing the ball like they should.
He coached at Notre Dame, well, among other places. But
Lou Holtz, come on.
Lou Holtz, used to be on game day. No longer on there.
He's got a crazy it's like which former Red Wings coach was that after Jacques Demers?
Brian Murray.
Stevie Eiserman's a great captain for us. He's just done such a good job. Yeah, I would be like, whoa, coach. Maybe we just call him Steve. Stevie Eiserman.
That's awesome stuff, man. Well, we could probably go on here for a while, but I know you got stuff to do, and keep up the great work. It's so awesome, man, to see you on TV down here. I didn't get to see you for years living down here in the suburbs of Detroit, and it's awesome every time I see you on, brother. I'm super happy and proud of you, and continued success, man. I'm your biggest fan, Jay.
I'm yours too, because every time I click through and I see a game on CBS, I'm like, I think Ben's doing this, and I'll hear your voice, and I'm like, I listened for the longest time. I just thought you're so good at what you do, and I always love to thank you because I said it to my wife today. She goes, I said, learned everything I know from Ben. I said, I didn't know crap when I first started there, and Ben beat me into submission. And by my first year, a couple times I hated him, but after a year, we were becoming really good friends, and we just crushed everything because he had created another one of him, and I just learned how to do everything the right way. It really set the tone for everything I do for my whole career. And I'm telling you, if I hadn't crossed paths with you, I wouldn't be near the reporter and anchor I am now. So thank you for that. Luke, you can learn a lot from him. I know you have, and you will. And I know you're doing kind of the same thing, man. Good luck. I think you're already killing it. You're like more professional than most podcasters.
More professional than his dad.
Yeah. Well,
hey,
come on.
I just want to say, man, when you said when we got rolling, man, it was always fun whooping up on Channel 6 and everybody else, wasn't it?
Oh God, when we started crushing them, and we would go outside and just take a breath, like ratings would come in, and your dad would go, he goes, just enjoy it for a second, but that's it, man. He goes, you start thinking about it, and that's when they start crushing you. He goes, just forget about it. We got it. Forget about it. Let's go on and win the next one. It was just always good. It's just like, don't live on your laurels. That was good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, again, thanks for joining us on my son named it the No Holding Back podcast. We love you.
Love it.
Up the great work, Jay.
I love you too, and I'll leave you with this. You know that thing in the back seat? It's not an air freshener. It's a dead rotting deer carcass. So we better end this.
Take that animals to the vet.
Take you to the vet.
Talking right now.
Shut up, Richard. I can't do this, man.
My dad just died. I just killed Bambi, and every time I drive down the road, I want to jerk the wheel into a goddamn bridge embankment.
Boy, I'm at a loss for words.
On that note, keep kicking
All right,
butt.
man. Good to see you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
You too, Jay. Thanks for joining us, man. Well, Jason Colthorp, we had a lot of fun the time we spent together, and fair to say that I passed along all those lines that we just recited from Tommy Boy onto you.
Yep.
I mean, he remembers meeting you when you were, you weren't even that tall. You were a foot tall, man.
Right,
so it's pretty cool to have him on. And, what'd you take away from what he had to say with us today?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have him on. Obviously, he's reporting here now for 5 years now down at WDIV in Detroit, Local 4. And just to get his take on everything that's kind of going on in the world and some of the even experience he had to deal with the current COVID-19 pandemic. Mm-hmm. Just to hear some of the stories from you guys, that you shared, with him starting his career and you kind of being a mentor for him, in a sense, and hearing all that and, seeing all the things that he learned from you and, obviously he's grateful where he came from. And I think, that holds a lot of value for anything really. So it was great to talk to him and share a laugh too was awesome. So.
Yeah, no, well, plenty of those. And now you share the same birthday.
Yes. Yes. So.
It was always, he's right. It was about 2 years. And finally he goes, my birthday is the 4th too. I'm like, well, sorry, he's my son. Yeah. But nevertheless, great time talking with Jason Colthorp, reporter anchor at Local 4 here in Detroit at WDIV, the NBC affiliate. And he is a talented guy, and he's going to continue to do great things in his career. He's very talented, and I'm a huge fan of his and a great friend, and appreciate him joining us here on the podcast. You want to take us out?
Yeah, so once again, thanks for joining us for this episode of the No Holden Back podcast. We hope you enjoyed our super guest hour with Jason Colthorp. It's been a great time doing this. This is episode 8 now, and I've had a ton of fun. I know you've had a ton of fun.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to getting some more guests on here later this week, even next week.
Yep.
You can look forward to guys like Bill Tierney, one of the most winningest coaches in college lacrosse history.
7 natties.
Yep. And Jade Miller, Minnesota Duluth.
2-time national champ for the Bulldog hockey team.
And then next week on Monday, look forward to Trevor Baptiste, current faceoff man for the PLL Premier Lacrosse League team, Atlas. Really excited to have him on and talk a little bit about lacrosse with him. I know I might be taking the reins for that.
He might be doing that one solo.
Yeah. But he's got a podcast coming out tomorrow. So we're pretty excited to talk to him. And we're just going to go from there. So.
All right. Well, stay safe, stay healthy. Until next time, we'll talk to you again on the No Holding Back podcast. Thanks for listening.